welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com Broiler Chicken Show. Trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's weekend show, the Broiler Chicken Show. I suppose we are fast coming into the end of 2025. So, see Solari's there wishing people happy holidays. That's sweet of you. I suppose happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa. All right, I think the AI just kicked in. I don't know whether we are still recording or whether we have to start again or not. Okay. Anyway, happy holidays again. Like I said there a moment ago. Happy, actually, I was so pleased the other day. Actually had multiple couples in the call the other day, and that made me feel so good because that's really the audience that I'm trying to reach out to, sort of, working families, young couples, people trying to get ahead. I don't think I come across as a very crypto bro kind of guy. Kind of boring financial planner. Do the right thing. Eat your vegetables. But that made me so happy the other day when I saw that. And I didn't realize, I don't know why, but I didn't really, because, that's, and there was a lady that used to follow us. I think she still does, Cheryl, and she said she had a son and she was trying to teach him, or at least try to set him up for success in his life. That's that just brings joy to my heart when I see that kind of stuff. Makes me so happy. So anyway, happy holidays to everybody. Actually, I did kind of a public service here. I don't know whether it'll be interpreted as, or it probably comes across as some horrible shill or something. But oh my goodness, 20, probably at least a good 25, if not more, years ago, a quarter of a century. Wow. I was taught a model used by floor brokers on how to identify value in the venture cap space, which ain't easy. I'm sure all you crypto investors have found that out the hard way. I often think about him because this particular floor broker is one of the nicest people I've met in my life. Absolute sweetheart. Well, one of those types of people that really didn't like to take advantage of the public. It was like you could just see it in his eyes. He was there because he loved the market. Anyway, he taught me this model on how to identify value in the venture cap space. And I think this is a really interesting anecdote of sort of the state of the market, the state of capitalism now. In that, I think over the past 10 years, especially those people that really knew what they were doing at the beginning and positioned themselves correctly, they've set themselves up for life in the crypto space. That makes sense. Founding members, all that kind of stuff. Was a really interesting journey watching from the sidelines this whole industry build itself out. I do think to a certain degree, well, to a very large degree, unfortunately. I do think that this industry has been securitized. I think all the processes of us learning about people like CZ, SBF, Do Kwon. There's a great one. They always say the road to hell is paved by the path of good intentions, right? I think all these people had the best intentions, but unfortunately, capital and like the size of capital and life-changing events and all that, man, it sure can corrupt the soul. Anyway, I guess just the point being that I think that based on my interpretation of the market and how capital and how this capitalist machine works is actually transitioning now from a period where the predominant world economy was sort of contracting and regressing and having to deal with demographic bubbles that just weren't friendly to we're now making the transition into whatever this new millennial generation's life pattern, life cycle is going to look like. 6, 7. Got to get used to all this new lingo. And actually, we have what somebody in here told me just recently. Just think of you're juggling, and then I can't say the other word on air. Anyway, as a interesting spectator of society and the human species, it's quite remarkable to see the fabric of society completely changing as we move through these demographic bubbles. I think that we are now in the growth side of the demographic wave for the millennials. Very hard to see for the beginning part of their life cycle. As they're entering the workforce, but they're not making that much money. And unfortunately, that's just a function of age. There's not really much you can do about it. And I don't know why. I certainly didn't plan it myself, but as I got older and more wisdom came with the miles, income levels go up. Just, it is what it is. So I think we're in that kind of phase where we're transitioning from the fear cycle, what I like to call it, into this greed cycle. And the initial part of it is extremely bumpy and unfortunately usually very inflationary. So I do like the idea with regard to crypto that I think we're now in the phase of society here, and it's going to be bumpy over the next few years. Don't get me wrong. This is going to be a very tough time for all of us. But we're in the phase now, I think, where companies themselves can identify the potential profit margin expansion of implementing blockchain solutions to their corporate needs. I do think that, of course, unfortunately, this is going to be removing a lot more humans from the workforce. So this, coupled with AI, seems to me that it's going to drive the productivity that you need to have these generational growth expansions. I think that if we had just muddled along with carbon paper and everything done in triplicate, ironically enough, when I talked to one of our gnarly futures traders, who just so happens, it's so ironic. We train these absolutely killer futures traders. And this guy still works for the government of California, which I find hilarious. And he does a great job at his day job. Don't get me wrong. The guy is absolutely one of the, if you're ever gonna like design a perfect employee, this is the guy, no doubt about it. And yet now he's sitting here just clipping the futures markets on a daily basis for extra income. But anyway, it's funny when you talk to him because the state of California still is using like 19 early 80s technology. I don't know whether they've actually even gotten to Windows 95 yet. I think they're still using, actually, the Solaris. Yeah, I think you guys would know. Has the state of California gotten to the point of using Windows 95 yet? Are they still using the Unix systems? It wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, point I'm trying to make is, of course, my sort of coming into age cycle was the advent of Windows 95, which I think was the precursor of, and then, of course, all the ancillary software and productivity enhancements derived from that, the advent of the internet, blah, blah, blah. That was the primary growth driver of that particular cycle. And it's what can justify things like multiple expansions, right? Which means the stock market goes up. And I think you all should know what I'm actually expecting out of the stock market. I've done lots of these. In fact, actually, a blog post I did recently was just specifically on that topic. And you've all seen this a million times. So I certainly don't think this is anything new to any of you. But how on earth does this happen? I don't know whether I'm even broadcasting. I don't know whether you can actually see this. Let's put this over here, see if we can do that a little better. At least I can see what the heck's going on over on YouTube. Hey, there we are. All right, so let's see. Does this image come on the screen here? 14 big viewers. Wow, holy moly, has this viewership ever dropped off? Son of a gun. Anyway. So, how does this happen? Through here, of course, this was the initial introduction to computing. IBM got its big hurrah here. Also, too, though, coming back after the Second World War, a lot of automation was introduced into American industry. So consumer goods and stuff like that were mass produced. And the highway system and stuff like that made internal transportation stuff much more efficient. But I might argue that your blockchain and your AI, they're probably going to be the primary drivers of what causes this insane growth that I fully expect to be coming here. The only problem with this image, of course, is how much is it actual natural growth and how much of it is just nothing more than money printer goes brrr, right? And they double the supply of the money, which means that the stock market has to double in price just to stay equal, right? I mean, we went 200, 400, 800. So there's like two doublings. So the problem here is, did the stock market and the earnings and stuff of these companies go up that much? Like a fourfold increase, or did maybe they double, but at the same time too, they doubled the money supply, right? And then hyperinflation of that, the grocery store kind of offsets a lot of this, and unfortunately, I think actually a lot of what you've seen in the market these days, this is taking the money printing out of the equation. But if you look at the stock market, it looks like this, even though really it looks like this. So anyway, just the point being that we're transitioning into this growth phase. So I think that investors really need to be thinking about, all right, how am I going to position myself so that, I understand how blockchain works. I understand the basic rudimentary workings of AI. Who are the companies that are going to take advantage of that technology to grow earnings, right? And stock prices are nothing more than earnings engines. I mean, I suppose you could plug your nose and just go and buy things like Palantirs and where was that? Was that over here? Yeah. Oh no, that's the Bitcoin ones. Where are the stock charts? I guess over here. So you could. I mean, I would not be surprised to see this Palantir many fold higher. Just I don't know how the hell you can go in and justify paying these kind of fundamental valuations. I mean, these are insane numbers. And we know that the insiders, that I don't know what the guy's name is, kind of funny haired guy. He's long this from like nothing. So I don't mind being long this story, but I want to be long where he's long. I suppose the one good thing about Allen, I suppose, is you could make the argument his little pay packages, and the fact that he doesn't make any money unless the stock price goes crazy. I suppose you could, in a way, especially when he comes out and he starts freaking out that all his shareholders are abandoning ship. Maybe that's when you ought to step in on a guy like him. But I would much rather try and find like tomorrow's story. Keep in mind, Tesla at one point was a penny stock. I mean, hell, this Palantir was once a penny stock here recently. So was this PayPal. They're all kind of mature stories. So, this brings me full circle back to what I sort of started all of this off with. That I love the idea of using time-tested valuation models that were taught to me by professional floor traders a million years ago. And value is value is value, especially when it comes to the stock market. And actually, if you actually pick apart the screen criteria, it makes common sense. I mean, if somebody is owed a bunch of money and they say, you know what, I'll relinquish that debt. And keep in mind, money is money is money, right? I'll relinquish that debt if you give me stock in the company. Then clearly that person must be sitting there going, either these guys that don't have a hope in hell of ever paying me back. And, you don't go and relinquish hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of debt just like that. I mean, give that stuff some serious consideration. You could probably go and sell the debt in the aftermarket at 10 cents on the dollar, 20 cents on the dollar, whatever. Who was it? Blackstone. I think it was Blackstone who was famous for that. Back in 2008, they went up and bought all the houses everybody got foreclosed on for pennies on the dollar, and then they became famous as brilliant hedge fund managers. Man, just taking advantage of the people who got suckered by the financial services industry. Anyway, the capitalist machine goes on, right? Anyway, so I like the idea now. I think this is the perfect opportunity. If you are a fan of blockchain, because obviously the cycle is broken. Probably not going to be like uber bullish of this space for probably a good year. I have a feeling that we're actually going to spend a lot of this year going through what's called systemic risk. Doesn't really have anything to do whatsoever with these individual companies. Try and avoid companies that are swimming in debt because, the banksters might just foreclose and put them out of business. But if your company has a relatively half decent share structure, not swimming in debt, the ability to raise money, and especially if you screen for stocks with, let's say less than 30 million shares out, that gives them the opportunity. If they want, they can go and do financings. 50 million, 100 million, a billion shares out. Man, it's tough to finance if you're not making any money. First thing they'll say is roll the stock back. Anyway, so try and juxtapose the two. Try and find technology and sort of stories that I think are going to drive productivity in the future. But then also too, try and find some fundamental value. And unfortunately, I think hopefully, every cycle it's the same damn thing. At the top of the crypto cycle, I can't get anybody to sell. And of course, I'm called some sort of, as we're heading into the peak, of course, I'm most enthusiastic. So people who get caught buying at the top, then when the market breaks, they accuse me of being a shiller, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. I'm just calling the signpost. But it's very difficult to actually figure out what the hell fundamental value is in a crypto. So let's get that straight. The reason why I like the Bitcoin story and the proof of work story as much as I do is because it's actually fairly easy to figure out what value is. And 9 times out of 10, market usually trades above value. And, if you are a retail person, you're going to pay up. And that's just the way capitalism works. These proof of stake cryptos, I've yet to have anybody actually clearly articulate how you figure out what value is on these things. And then if you have like tokens, tokenization, real world assets, technically there could be like zero value. It could be 0.000000001 Satoshi or whatever you want to use. Just as long as it's there and the network is validating, does it make any difference what the price of the thing is? And so that's what really scares me about crypto. And I don't think I really drove home this idea of rational analysis hard enough to this community. But anyway, hindsight's 2020. So we know that the Bitcoin story is kind of on pause now for the next year or so. But the question here is, since the blockchain technology is pretty robust now and it's been built out, can we find companies that have relatively good share structures? We're going to be able to buy them when we buy them in the open marketplace at, and if we're lucky, below where the insiders or directors of the companies are long. That always makes me happy. And they can leverage the story du jour. So that was my contribution. And, I don't know whether you want to call it a Christmas gift. It is core concept of my education program that I wrote 10, 15 years ago. So students of mine should be very familiar with this model. It's not rocket science, but at the same time too, you have to be very patient and disciplined and wait for the criteria to line up. And then what's really special about this particular part of the market is that there are 2 windows, but this is the primary tax-driven investment decision window that actually makes for a very poor investment decision window. So what do I mean by that? Obviously, taxes play a huge role in our society, like it or lump it, right? The only thing guaranteed, death and taxes. So theoretically, according to the law, it goes Tax evasion is illegal. Tax avoidance is not. So a whole industry blossoms over what's the definition between evasion and avoidance. And that's a very gray line. But one of the ways to avoid paying taxes on things like capital gains is to have assets that have depreciated and you book a capital loss. So if the capital loss equals the capital gain realized somewhere else, maybe your AI stock du jour, maybe you bought Bitcoin, I don't know, in the past, well, even I guess the past few years, and you sold into that rally window, you got paid. Anyway, point there is tax liability, so got to go farm other assets that I have losses on to offset that tax liability. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. But the interesting thing is that those tax-driven decisions are not necessarily good investment decisions. But if you can look at the other side of the equation and understand that this person is acting in the marketplace, probably not in their best financial investment perspective, but they're driven by taxes. Well, can we take advantage of their poor investment decisions? I think so. And that's half of what makes this particular part of the year so attractive for venture cap investors. And I also see, for whatever it's worth, usually, especially things like Ethereum, usually coming out of the end of the year. And I think it will be especially so this year because the crypto space has been so beaten down that we probably will see a fairly sizable rebound some point in the early January period. In the market, they call it the January effect. So Google that if you don't believe me and you want to fact check me. Anyway, so have fundamental models suggesting some interesting value propositions in the market. We have a technical window where prices are being driven down by seasonality factors. And I think sentiment-wise, this is, the crypto space is very, very unliked right now. That's probably a way to put it. So I think you're also taking advantage of that sort of buying when they're crying and selling when they're yelling scenario. So put it all together, the names, and I did this as sort of like my, Christmas gift to the world kind of thing. I don't know whether it is or not, but hopefully you interpret it that way. Certainly, I don't have any financial interest or vested interest, whether you buy this stuff or not. Don't really care one way or the other. I am long all of these names. Let's consider, I don't know whether you can or not, but consider this sort of me giving back. I thought this one was really fun, of course, along the AI theme. This Super Buzz only has 20 million shares out. I don't know where I guess they don't show. Oh, I guess maybe they don't show on the weekly charts. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Where am I? That's over there. Let's see if I can do this. Interesting. They're not showing the rollback. Anyway, they rolled this guy back a while ago, I think somewhere back in here. 20 million shares out. Always love when I see that lowest share count. And heavy insider buying here. A lot of insider buying on this stock, considering, just over the past 12 months, that's what, about 10% of the capital stock out was just gobbled up by insiders. Only 20 million out here. So something's going on with this thing. It's an interesting story. That's these guys. So they're saying, tired of writing campaigns that flop? Let AI do it for you. Boost your sales by 50% in 30 days. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's, you can see the future coming here, right? I don't know whether these guys are going to pull it off, but you can see it's got all the hallmarks. It's got a story. They put some money into the website. Obviously, they've got a product here that they're feeling pretty good about. Hell, I might even do this in January. What the hell? Just see what happens. Although I don't know what 50% increase from zero is. I think that's still zero. Anyway, so it's just an example of a name. And I think this is a really good example where I don't know where the hell the damn stock's going to go. But at 12 cents a share here, like this is clearly those people that bought in here, actually anywhere, I suppose, even up in here. Remember, like back in the summer, this AI stuff was going absolutely crazy. Those people are all selling, taking losses, whatever. And this is 58 cents. So, any student of mine will just say, well, what's a 50% level? So, at 12 cents. And again, I don't care whether you buy this or not. It won't make any difference to me. But 33 cents, 50% level. And you can see there's a gap right there. So any student of mine knows that those gaps will probably be filled in down the road. Can I get a double off there? Could I sell like 2/3 of the position, book a nice 20, 30% return on my money, and I got free stock for the rest of my life? And I don't know. Who knows where the hell this damn thing will go? If anything, I kind of like that it's a nice clean chart like that because this is open sky here. And, I've done this on these altcoins in the past, but there's no difference. Same thing with these junior stocks. $1.50 at 10x on my money. I guess I could live with that. So, this is just an example of the way that VSC floor brokers start hunting for ideas. Most important thing is you got to make damn sure that low share count, right? So you don't get caught in the rollback. I thought it was interesting on all of these. I noticed, oh, what a surprise. Insiders are loading up on these stocks. Well, why? Well, chart says it speaks for itself. It's a good looking chart. So anyway, that's one. This is an interesting one, Evergen, again, low share count, lots of insider buying. These guys are a bit cheeky, though, because in my country, and keep in mind, these are all Canadian stocks. I think a lot of them you can actually buy in the OTC market, though, if you're overseas. Or you can, I think you can even buy these symbols on Interactive. But my country is ever so slowly slipping into almost this funny quasi. I don't know whether communist is the right word. Oligarchist. I don't know whether that's the right word, but this is a very good example where the government, especially here locally, this is a BC company. They've highly politicized business. So much so, actually, that there's some like mining companies that I'm really interested in, and their stocks, I think, are steals. But the stocks won't do anything because the government's basically just said, nope, you're not allowed to do any mining in this province anymore. Yeah, we got all the resources in the world. They're just sitting there, but you're not allowed to touch them. So that's the weird capitalism that's happening in this country right now. It's scary times. We could very easily slip into like an Orwellian kind of quasi oligarchist kind of capitalism here. Could turn very weird. Very much like the Third Reich, guys like, Schindler's List and all that. They did pretty well under Hitler. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, the point with this one is I was actually quite shocked. The amount of tax loss selling here through into the end of the year was quite material. That this one actually had shares to directors at 60 cents. And that's actually what got me interested. And they cut this thing in half from there. So this is a stock where if it just comes back to where the directors are like, okay, well, we've got our options here. Thank God. Now we're actually making money. I get a double. I don't know. Does that look like it has any room to move back up? Good old 50% rules. So it's the same process repeated over and over and over. I mean, that would be crazy if we got that kind of 50% bounce, but there's no reason why it can't happen. It's just TA 101. And once again, well, a whole pile of insider buying here, so I want to pay attention to that stuff. So this guy is an interesting character, but I actually think it's very topical because they're basically in bed with the government. So they basically got a guaranteed business model as long as they just keep spouting out this woke agenda, global warming craziness. Ironically enough, I thought it was hilarious. The one thing that absolutely sold me, I'm actually a fan of global warming. Why? Because I'm a fan of Mother Earth. I am just part of this planet's life force, and I am inextricably tied to this planet. It's we all are, right? It turns out that actually global warming is actually quite good for the planet. The amount of green on the planet is actually showing up in the data. The data is clearly demonstrating the planet likes this more CO2 in the atmosphere. Why? Because plants breathe CO2. So you're basically just increasing their life force. Just hilarious, eh? That's the one thing that would eventually that would actually come and completely derail this whole environmental nonsense movement. And frankly speaking, I mean, I lived in the whole 20th century. Nobody ever talked about this. It only got started when Al Gore did his thing. And according to Al Gore, the state of Florida should be entirely underwater right now. And don't get me wrong, I do think that the globe's climate is changing, but I think it has been changing for the past 14,000 years since the Younger Dryas. And we're still trying to figure out what the hell the end result of that big event is. And 14,000 years in the comic lifespan is nothing. I mean, we're still the tide, the seas are still rocking from the event right now. So anyway, of course, I'm not giving solutions to any of that, but I did find it quite amusing that the planet actually likes more CO2 in the atmosphere. Anyway, so if anything, I like this story because it is an absolute perfect analogy of corporate. Remember Cool Kelly Loeffler? Adam, you remember Cool Kelly Loeffler? Um, and that we went through a whole phase there with Cool Kelly Loeffler being injected on the U.S. Senate, and what did they call it? Like crony capitalism. So I believe that this story, and frankly speaking, I don't care whether you buy it or not. I've said that repeatedly. I'll say it again. I think this is a perfect analogy of crony capitalism. And what the hell? The guy in power in my country is completely screwing us all over. So I might as well take advantage of it. Right. I mean, there are winners and losers in his version of capitalism. The question would be if you knew what the Rothschilds were going to do the day that they went in and screwed the Bank of England and the English government with their manipulation of the bond market following the conclusion of the Battle of Waterloo. If you knew what he was going to do and you knew that there was nothing that was going to stand in his way, would you not take advantage of that information? So in a weird sort of way, that's actually what half of this is actually, old VSC floor brokers. They sort of know what the tells of half decent venture cap ideas look like. And then we're using a tax loss selling window that artificially is depressing these prices. We understand how, things like crony capitalism works in our society. and how, there's probably a lot of people in government bodies that are going to get very, very wealthy off of this thing performing here. You can see somebody's coming in and buying just a truckload of this thing. So why not take advantage of it? I mean, it's just sitting here. Again, I'm not telling you to buy. I couldn't care whether you buy this or not. This is what I'm doing with my money, and I'm doing this as a public service to try and show you how I go and invest my money. And like I always say, I think that the greatest aspiration I have is when I can come back 6 months later and I can say things like, well, that tweet aged well. I love when I can do that, because that makes all of this in my eyes validated. Anyway, blah blah blah. Moving on, and this is where the story gets interesting, because we talked a little bit about AI. I think you all know the AI story, and I think if you can take advantage of it, great. I really like this angle. Luxfolio here, they literally want to start leveraging the Litecoin economy. And I think that these are the type of people, and I think this is how the business works going forward, is that people will go into association with Charlie, or whatever Litecoin network is, kind of like the way that Doge uses Litecoin to validate. And I think that these people are going to, they want to build out they've got a Litecoin treasury. I don't think that stuff's going to last too long. But, what I want to see is, how do these companies actually go about using these cryptocurrencies in building out business models for companies to take advantage of the blockchain, and leverage it, obviously, to drive profit. So I like this story. I mean, it meets all the VCIM criteria for me to be interested. Low share count, getting in lower than where the insiders are on, and all that kind of stuff. And it's a proxy on good old Charlie. I've always thought highly of Charlie. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, when I looked at the news of this, they, brought him on board. They gave him some stock. And just by me being patient and not really being in a big hurry, I think they brought him on here, and that's what caused the stock to go crazy there. I actually was able to sneak my way in here below where he's long. And anytime I can get in below where hotshot big shots are in, that every day of the week I'll take that trade. So I was pretty happy to sneak my way in here. And then this is a really interesting story. And this is how I think, if anything, I think this company is the ultimate personification of the Wall Streetization of the blockchain. So again, I'm not pitching. I mean, the chart looks absolutely pristine, and it's met all of the criteria. In fact, actually, I've been in this a few cycles. I made some great money on this actually not that run. This run, I made a lot of money previous cycle. But I mean, this guy, look at that bottom. I mean, anybody who's watched me over the years, you should look at that and go, son of a gun. I think that's what that Beamish guy kind of likes to see. Again, big insider purchases. Somebody's buying stock up here. Yeah, there was a couple insiders that also got out recently here. So you can definitely tell there's a shakeup in management. But I would do yourself a favor, if you're interested in the way that I sort of see this story going, that I even just bang the video out on the tweet. I have no idea where the heck that link's going to be. Over here. No. Anyway, I don't know where the hell I put it, but basically, I mean, you could go see it for yourself. But I included the interview with the CEO that they hired here to manage this asset that they own, Real Blocks. They hired a guy specifically to run it. I got to tell you, man, he talks the talk. He sounds exactly the way Wall Street wants people to sound. So, the irony of it all is that I said I'm not really that bullish of crypto. And frankly speaking, if I looked at Litecoin right now, man, I don't really that interested. I definitely think that there's going to be some sort of seasonal bounce into the spring. And a name like this, could I see 20, well, I guess 40 cents right here on this Lux here to get off a double into the spring? I think so. I don't think this is an egregious request. 53 cents, give me more than that double. And I don't know where the hell this thing's going, but holy crap, look at that chart. I already have a bucket load of this, but I think I want to go and buy some more. I can't believe that chart. And they just announced a shares for debt deal at 7 cents. So I said to you earlier, anytime you hear about companies that relinquish debt for stock in the company, and that means that there's some value down there. So I absolutely love that thing. But I wouldn't really have that long of a time horizon. If it took a year or two for all of these trades to spit out their doubles, I'd be perfectly happy with that. I consider it my public service announcement. All right. So, being the end of the year, I spent a bit of time on that here today. I hope you enjoyed that. And of course, if you want to learn more about the model and how I set myself up to trade that, well, keep tuned in. Suppose there'll be plenty of that down the road. All right, so the newsletter, we talked to, unfortunately, the data at TRI. I think they're sort of getting ready for what their new iteration of TRI is going to look like in the new year, so I wasn't able to update this for you, nor that. I'll have the different versions of these down the road. Talked a little bit about the markets in focus. I guess we can talk a little bit about Bitcoin right here. You know, the one thing that bothers me about Bitcoin, considering that it's well above value in my eyes, is that I do think that it is highly, highly manipulatable through all of this. And something that I saw on Friday, I think, was the absolute personification of this current Biff Tannen capitalism environment that we're in right now, where to all intents and purposes, the people that are supposed to be regulating this space have basically been castrated. And interestingly enough, the public doesn't realize that their encouragement to think badly about regulators and supervision in the marketplace is only going to make this situation worse. I found it interesting on Friday, or at least on Thursday, this Bitcoin ETF finished the day on its absolute knees. Not necessarily a signal unto itself, but a very, very weak market. Basically testing extreme ends of the range. I am sure there's probably people that saw the breakthrough this low and said, that's it, let's run for the hills, get me out. And then the next day, just mysteriously out of nowhere, oh, we're going to move this market, like 5% higher? Just out of nowhere, 4%? When does that happen? Do you ever see the Dow just instantly close one day at one price and then the next day it opens up 5,000 points higher? When was the last time we ever saw that? And there was no news. I didn't hear anybody say anything about Bitcoin. Nothing. Didn't hear anything about blockchain. So it just goes to show clearly This asset has been securitized, Wall Streetized, and is being stunningly manipulated in here, which is tragic. I'm sure the Scott Bessants of this world are laughing, and the George Soroses, because keep in mind, basically, Mr. Bessant is George Soros's um, protege. I don't know whether that's the right word. Him and Druckenmiller, along with Jimmy Rogers. I think Jimmy Rogers was part of that crew too. Could be mistaken about him. I think Larry Williams was thrown in there somewhere as well, if I'm not mistaken, but I can't remember. Anyway, point of the matter here is, how on earth do you explain that? And then after like a 4% move the entire day, it just literally sits there parked on that level. And if you actually like zoom in on the 3 minute, I mean, this is brutal. Just terrible. So there's our heaviest open interest on the put options. And keep in mind that Wall Street writes like 80-90% of puts. They write a lot of them. It's easy money for them. If they don't let them expire in the money. Or even worse, you figure out what their average right price is, and they let them expire like 9 cents in the money, so that the Chicago Board Options Exchange, with it being more than a nickel in the money, causes auto exercise. So if they wrote, say, these $50 puts, and I'd actually be curious to see. Where can I do this? I guess we'll just do up anyone. What is the average right price of these $50 puts? Right, because I had the data here. This was taken sort of first thing in the morning. I like to just get an idea, where do these options boys want the market to go out? Some people like to call this max pain. You've probably seen that reference. But clearly you can see they would ideally like to see all of these call options expire worthless. And then conversely, on the other side, they'd love to see all of these put options expire worthless. So the best place to have that happen, where they have the maximum amount of pain, is to have it settle out right around $50. So with it, what did we say it went out at? Like 49 something? Where are we here? Here we are. 49.91. Do you see how brutally corrupt this is? Anyone? So that means 49.91. These $50 puts technically expired in the money, which means that technically Wall Street did buy 2.4 million shares of this thing at $50. Let's see what their average right price was on that option. So by definition, that'll tell us what their average cost is. Strong sell, but Wall Street's buying. Something's not right there. I don't know whether you really want to get sucked into these advisory things. Sometimes it feels like it's just they're setting you up for disaster. Anyway, what did I want to do here? Oh, you knuckles. Damn it. See, as soon as the option expires, it goes off the board, so I can't see what the damn average right price was. What a knucklehead. Oh, well. We can look at the weekly options. This expires the day after Christmas, Boxing Day, but just to get an idea, here are the 50s. These are the calls. I suppose we can go side by side. Interesting. Tasty Trade. Did you see that? Tasty Trades had some sort of advertisement in there. Anyway, you can see they're sitting at $1 or $2 even now. They expire next week. Well, let's just see, just out of curiosity, what's sort of their average, right? 8,000 contracts or something. So you can see writing. I don't see, looks like we went from 3,000 up to, oh boy, all the way up to, I guess, what's that number? 8,000? Huh. Um, I don't know, let's call it a buck or two, buck and a half, somewhere in there. So if you use the same logic, you can see it's sitting at $1.20. Then that means that if you actually get exercised on these 50 puts, then and your average right price was like maybe a buck and a half, something like that. Then that means that your actual average cost is 48 and a half. So it wouldn't surprise me that if Wall Street did want to get out of that position, um, you could make the argument now, and if we just say a buck and a half, let's keep it simple. And that means, yeah, on paper they got exercised at 50, but their cost basis is 48 and a half right there. So interesting how they have a gap right here. It wouldn't surprise me if they just will not let this thing go any lower because they don't want to be negative on their trade. But into that options expiry, I find that awfully suspicious. And notice, did not close above 50. So that means all of these call options, every single one of them above 50 bucks expired worthless. Man, that's a lot of money. So I have a feel, and you can even see, look at the amount of calls that they have they're on the hook for. I mean, it's staggering the difference. So, when you see something that is blatant as this, and then you come out and you see they gap the market violently higher into this level, this is proof. This is evidence of market manipulation as far as I'm concerned. There's no other way you can explain how Bitcoin, and it didn't, right? If you go over to the actual like stamp chart, yeah, it moved up, but it didn't jump like 4%. So I don't know whether that was a complete waste of your time, but I think it is a good illustration of how you can use derivatives markets information to get a pretty good idea of where Wall Street wants these ETFs. And of course, can you use that as edge? I suppose on Thursday, we might have looked at this and said, I think there's probably a pretty good chance they're going to take this thing up. But they didn't even give anybody the opportunity to participate. They closed it here, there, and boom, they opened it up the next day right there. And anybody who's like, all right, I'm going to try and take advantage of that, they just got screwed around with here. Total market manipulation. Staggering. Oh, well. Interesting when we go look at the Bitcoin chart itself. I mean, do you see that 4% move there on the weekly chart? No. I mean, basically last week was a non-event. And I might even argue too that the fact that this was a big quarterly options expiry, this was the December contract, big chunky quarterly contract that a lot of sort of institutional players like to use. That also kind of hints that, yeah, maybe they had a very specific plan here for this week. So when I look at a chart like this, I don't really see it. Like, there's not really much going on here. We had a market that was just, very, very uppy. We went through, unfortunately, a very powerful pivot. And we just feel like flaccid. I think that's the best word to use right now. It's just limp. And the problem with this kind of market here is, we clearly have a lot of evidence technically that the trend is now down. Of course, everybody and their brother wants me to sit here and go, oh, yeah, no, this is a buy. Get in there and you'll do fine. I actually think for us to be bullish, we actually have to see the market tell us that it is bullish. And that might be something like this. You notice when the moving average is crossed here, we had to go through a couple months of just, are we down? Are we up? Are we down? Then we had that big political catalyst and the market launched. But I find it interesting. About a month or two ago, I was listening to Larry Williams, and he was saying, according to his cycles, Bitcoin should bottom, or not bottom, but the cycle turns back up first week of February. So, thinking about how Bitcoin pivoted on this particular political event there. And then we have a pretty big political event coming up here in January. I don't know whether political is the right word. Basically, Mr. Trump's tariffs and this whole policy that he's put the world through for the past year, their case is finally coming in front of the Supreme Court. One might argue, actually, this might very easily be a sell the rumor. And if Mr. Trump's tariffs get tossed out, actually, you know what? I don't even know which way this goes. I have no idea. My hunch here is that if the Supreme Court does turf his tariffs out, it's going to send the world into even more chaos and turmoil through 2026. If we want to believe like Larry's bullish pivot here, then maybe this is a sell the rumor, and then whatever the actual Supreme Court event is, maybe there's some sort of panic or something around it. But maybe that's a trap, right? Notice like the Bitcoin profile here, this area really needs filling in. Maybe we have some sort of absolute panic into that January event, and this profile does get filled in, and then we start climbing the wall of worry. I don't know. What I would say though here is like saying something like, well, yeah, this market can rally here, no problem. I don't see any fundamental reason for the market to rally. The only reason, and I suppose that happens in basically about 10 days, is we should see the January effect kick in here where tax loss selling sort of abates. Now, if you are tax loss selling and you have 3-day settlement, and the interesting thing is I actually heard some places saying that they aren't going to allow crypto exchange capital losses. I have no idea how that's all going to play out. But I do know if you had bought like even the ETF, anytime through here, you could book a capital loss if you had gains elsewhere. And I think that's a lot of what's sort of dominating price action. Well, that has to come to an end on Monday, the 29th, right? Classic 3-day stock settlement. So you sell here, and actually, well, 1, 2, 3. The stock should be settled here, mind you. You might have to actually do it that Friday. And that's interesting because a lot of countries, Boxing Day is a holiday as well. So 1, 2, 3, we should be able to get 3-day settlement done. Probably my hunch is there's going to be some sort of peak in tax loss selling. It's going to be through this weekend window, or basically a week from now. And I suppose you could argue, beep, we finished this week here. This candle right here, this is a doji, which could mean either one of two things. It could mean a pivot. We're done going down. We've accepted. We're going to start heading back up. Maybe that's, that tax loss selling sort of exhausts itself through this week. Maybe we paint even another little doji in here with some back and forth. And then the following week, that January effect kind of conversation can start kicking in. Maybe we get a little bit of a counter trend rally to start the January off, because we're going to have to do a whole brand new January barometer report. And then maybe we have to dump into Larry's early February pivot, as I do believe that the January barometer is probably going to show us, just like it did. Ironically enough, I think the January barometer did a great job this year. Let's move that over there. Which one is it? That's this one over here. Where there we are. So clearly whoever was in charge realized, oh boy, there's going to be some trouble. And there was. Then hey, we'll be all right. But then into the end of the year, oh boy, what the hell's going to happen? You know, I actually think that the traders kind of knew that there was going to be some sort of showdown with the Supreme Court. And I do think that a spat of profit taking heading into this year with so many uncertainties looming in 2026, that's not bad thinking. I also think to a certain degree that plunge protection teams are at work. So every time these stock markets start to get going in earnest, I did notice that mysteriously bottoms would just mysteriously seem to form. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit more selling here into the end of the year. But at the same point here is, once we get to January, we got to do this whole report all over again. And what will probably happen is January will, my hunch is, probably start out relatively well. Then maybe early on to reflect that Supreme Court sort of uncertainty, a bit of a sell off. Then I wouldn't be surprised to see a big rally. And then into the second half of 2026 and through the election, I think it's going to be a bit chaotic. So, ironically enough, this January's price action probably going to look a hell of a lot like last year's January price action. The question ultimately here is how bad do the traders think next November is going to get down in the States? If they think it's going to be bad, we might have to come all the way back down here. Who knows? But we'll let January tell us, right? I have no real reason to start second guessing that ahead of the event. So, I guess the way I'm looking at it here is I get the impression crypto is just going to sort of head into the end of the year on a whimper. I think there could be a little bit of a counter trend rally. Keep in mind short-term resistance, 13 EMA. This 13 EMA likes to be traded back to. It doesn't, market does not like to be far away from it for long. So we've now been far away from it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. You can even see here. Oh, I'm a bull. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, okay. Well, we're sort of back there now. Okay, I'm a bull. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, it took 9 weeks for it to trade back there. I'm a bull. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is it next week? Maybe not. But the following week, I can see us come back and have to check this trend line from the other side, check the moving average, check the big fat round number, and through that early January period, reflecting hopefully some enthusiasm. I still like the idea, and all those little stocks that I told you I'm buying, fully expect into next spring, I'll be banging out doubles on all of those. And I wouldn't be surprised if we find into next spring, probably actually even into this eclipse window, which would make sense. I think the stock market peaks next sort of May, June. And I think crypto, I think next summer will be sort of a very tumultuous, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I think there's probably going to be a pivot here. Notice the next eclipse window is like the end of the summer as we get ready for the political insanity next fall. Makes sense to me. So don't think we need to be in a huge hurry right here. If anything, there's probably going to be a bit more back and forth. I do like the idea of using the eclipse window and Larry Williams thinking. Fill in the profile. And again, at $75,000 of Bitcoin, does Bitcoin give a rat's ass about day-to-day price fluctuations? No, doesn't care. As long as it's well above cost of production, it's just business as usual. So the trend is down. Clearly a lot of market manipulation through here. A lot of tax loss selling business going on. And I might argue that back in January, the traders knew that the end of this year was going to be really chaotic anyway. So not really anything out of the ordinary. Coming back down into our pump chaser zone, TBG's pump chaser zone, where TBG is around. Really based off of Colin. I have no idea how Colin's doing. I sure hope his coin. Everybody know if Colin's coin, they had like a guaranteed peg on his coin. And I said, after this cycle ends, then you're going to find out whether your peg actually is worth anything or not. I'd be curious to see how Colin and his peg is doing. What kind of bothers me about this pattern here is that we never did trade down to this 1.618. And there's still this candle body low for trade location in these tails. I mean, I suppose, yeah, it could be a bottom, but could we very easily see one more little FU move just to piss the kids off here through this window? I could easily see that. Would not be a stretch at all. If we look at things like the total market cap, we actually just broke this low. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. So you can clearly see the tax loss selling is relentless here. Here is that year-end marker, and as you can kind of see, I'm, to anybody who listens to me, I'm sort of setting people up with, well, get ready for that January effect. I think there will be some sort of dead cat bounce in the space. The problem, though, is that this dead cat bounce, because we are below trend lines, this is this particular trend line, because we are below this, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a buy. This is just like that dead cat bounce. And I would probably do things like let's bounce back to 38.2s, make guys like Ray Burchett happy, chop around here sideways, and especially with what we're kind of thinking about the end of February, beginning of March, maybe something like that. So I would caution you that we got to get on the other side of these trend lines, and we got to start seeing some W's come in here, damn it, before we can really start getting bullish. Doesn't necessarily see the problem here is that I think that there is a lot of tax loss selling going on. And I, on a regular basis, I find it very difficult because I never really hear any stories in the crypto space that makes me go, you know what? Yeah, I want to get all over that. I just don't hear really, and this has been kind of a failing of crypto in my eyes for quite some time. Is the people that build these blockchains, great, they build them, yep, they're running along, but now what do you do with them? I don't know. All right, so show me these things actually being used. I do think that a huge part of this sort of market right now is all around these treasuries. As you saw, I do have a couple proxies in the space. I don't mind riding Charlie's coattails, as long as I can get make damn sure I get in at or below where he's long. I heard recently Winkle-Dinkles we're all excited about this ZEC story. But, and this is the same thing as that CEPH. It's the same story. And actually, to really understand this story, I don't even think you look at this. All you got to do is just look at the price chart. Maybe we'll go over here. Oh, no, I don't want to use that one. Actually, you can see the Bitcoin market just perked. I do actually, I'm going to keep a close eye on this link. Did for demonstration purposes, did have a couple little setups come in here. We took them. This one produced a small win. This one actually produced a small loss. It was a zero-sum game. Took a flyer on Donnie and got stopped for a full loss, quite a bit higher here. So not interested in Donnie at all right now. Although, I suppose traders got to trade. Interesting level it's come into here. You can see squiggly line theory here for the win. So I don't know. You want to pull the trigger? It's up to you. But what I wanted to show you was, where's the best place to do this? I guess, well, maybe we'll just go back over here. Let's do one. I'm wasting time. Stop wasting time. Don't know which one to do this one. Oh, maybe I'll do it over here. Yeah, here it is. So, do I have that CE? Yeah, here it is. CEPH. This is a Winkle Dinkles. And using that same logic as that Lux Folio, I'm happy to be long down there, but I don't want to buy up here. Yuck. So this thing's still got to come down a bit more, and you can see, unfortunately, it's making lower highs. So maybe that's a little bit better. So there really is no serious bottom here. I might argue that if you're going to momentum trade this, then you got to see a W come in on the other side of that. So they are on the other side. If it can paint some sort of W, and we get the indicators pointing back up, maybe. But, value guy, I want to be long down here. And it's the same thing as there's BMNR. You could maybe come in on the value trade. This is I guess maybe there's more momentum. Breaking trend lines, reload zones. If a W comes in here, great. There's a trade. I could understand that. But Tom Lee himself has said that he's long from $4. And like that Lux, I want to be long down here, not up here. So that's kind of the way that I see a lot of the market right now. Is it does look like we're trying to pivot here and into the year end. I'm sure there's plenty of people tax loss selling this thing. But I want to be a little bit more specific, and I don't know whether, I suppose if we do get a W here, I might pay attention. I suppose what we really need to see here is can we get some sort of bottom on Ethereum? I haven't looked at him today. Let's see what he looks like. So anyway, I wanted to mention like the ZEC and the Winkle Dinkles. So I don't really feel very good about people coming in and investing in names like this. I mean, does that look like it's in reload zones? No. And there's no reason. I mean, any of you that have been participating in this space with me over the years, you all know where this crap's coming back down to. Could we get a nice seasonal rally and take this thing up, brush up against these old highs? Sure, why not? So for illustration purposes, I've actually been showing everybody on the site, well, if you want to play in this thing, great. Well, just trade setups. So when we were up top here, I was demonstrating shorting this. I got stopped out on the stock short by one tick, typical bulletin board stock action. But then we strapped on a short on this thing and rode it down. Nice profits, it's just demo trades. Then we got pretty washed out here. This was a higher time frame mountain man level. And then we did a reload zone in that range. And so I was like, all right, now let's demo this thing heading back up. So I actually don't mind the idea of people being long this stuff. Just don't be long from shitty levels. Trade setups, right? Don't act. When I hear people that come in and are rah 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 about this stuff over here and up here, that's just, it screams amateur. Right? Just wait for the correction, hunt a setup, and then get long. Anyway, blah blah blah. So this one here, again, this is just, demonstration for especially new people to trading. How does this kind of look like? So this guy here, we strapped on a little bit guy off of that. Like a very cute little setup, nothing wrong with that. Let a bunch of it go on that nice 3.5 to 1 risk reward. Now you got your free position, stops at scratch. I don't know what's gonna happen. I would just let that thing work. That's just the way capitalism goes. Um, but if anything, I really like this kind of market. This is the same thing as the Lux. I mean, the reason why I like the Lux so much is they're giving it away now. I'm happy to go in and buy it if it's at the bottom end of the range. So that's this funny thing. I mean, Jesus, stock was at 87 cents there just back in July. So I'm happy to step in on something like that. I just have to see value and I have to understand the story. And I have to absolutely be able to get long this thing lower than where Charlie's long. Woohoo! That makes me happy. Anyway, so hopefully that gives you an idea what I see in the crypto space for now. Somebody was asking what I think about PayPal. I know that the sort of the team at TRI like the fundamental story at PayPal. And as long as the technical picture agreed with the fundamental picture, I was happy to stay in the stock. Although, these people, I don't feel very good morally about being with them. I know everybody and their brother loves Alan. I'm not really the biggest fan. Did find it interesting that this bearish price action, I was bullish through here. We had nice bases working. They came down. They tested a low. That was close. All right, we're still good. Then they broke down through this level, and I was like, you know what? I have no interest. I want to get the hell out of here. I actually think that there's a B, C, D working right now on this thing. So we had an update there on Friday, but technically speaking, it's a little bit early for a guy like me to be thinking about getting too bullish. Having said that, this could very easily be a harmonic that's forming here. So I think probably to get a half decent idea of if this is a harmonic, if you get a nice, we got a nice bullish engulfing bar there. This low here was 60.12. That was, nope, no, it wasn't. 58.80, 58.92. So ideally what you'd like to see tomorrow is just a nice, quiet, polite inside bar. And then Tuesday, that confirms higher. Then you have a 3-bar fractal. You might make the argument, pretty good chance of seeing some upside here. But at the same time, too, I just have a new M that's fired here. Technically, I do have a bot setup that's working. I missed the trade, and now that move stop to scratch has been hit on this setup, if it does actually come back to that bot entry level, I have to walk away from the trade. So right now I should be short. I'm not. I wanted to get that trade on. It zipped down, move stop to scratch level. So now I've missed that trade. So I couldn't even take this bot even if I wanted to. But its stop would be at scratch and if we do, of course, jump back up into there, then we're probably going to try and accept back above this trend line and then any kind of bullish structure there. And woo, you could have a wicked rally. And, let's call a spade a spade. That is a potential harmonic. You do have a nice railroad tracks there. So coming in, if you wanted to down in here and just simply risk to these lows, that's not a bad risk window. But, that's a trader's got to trade kind of trade. I wouldn't want to hear mom and pop even thinking about this right here. I would prefer mom and pop if you are interested. Just let this W come in, and then that at least gives you a nice risk framework to work with. But it is what it is. I would personally, just me, I would personally rather go and put my money to work in on those names that I'm long from where or below the directors are long. I don't know where these guys are long this thing. I suppose if this thing can get back up here and confirm this harmonic and confirm the W here, then I might entertain a bullish setup. But I'd have to see that happen first. So right now, I still think we're heading down. So anyway, you asked, I answered. That was, who was that? Somebody asked about that earlier. Quality over quantity. All right. Could that be a perfect Black Friday to drop all crypto on 26th of December when everyone is away celebrating Xmas? Yeah. In years gone by, I used to see the Chinese, and we used to joke about how CZ and all them would sort of shit on the Western kids Christmas morning. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't hear that kind of narrative out of crypto anymore. To be perfectly honest with you, I think the people that were involved in crypto, there was a very specific segment of this that were just blatant crooks. Keep in mind, CZ and SBF used to have channels on Discord that only they were part of, and Telegram and all that, where they would literally discuss, okay, what is the scam du jour? So I don't really see that kind of environment within this space anymore. And what I see, and I think that to actually cause the amount of price appreciation that we did see in years gone by, you needed those actors. So, and also too, you needed the space to be relatively limited in participation. I do believe that the crypto story now has been completely diluted with things like the Bitcoin ETFs and Wall Street and the public in the States. They are up to their boobs long all this crypto crap from up top. There's like 20 different Bitcoin ETFs, 20 different Ethereum ETFs. Somebody had to buy all that garbage paper. So I've said repeatedly this cycle, who won? Solana won, and all of that crazy Solana market capitalization explosion, 1 million coins. And Wall Street won with the IPO market. Now this treasury fad, which is just nothing more than diluting now ZEC and diluting Ethereum even more. I mean, if it wasn't for on top of the fact that you have the ETH ETFs, now you've got Tom Lee sitting there saying, I'm not technically an ETF, but I am an Ethereum treasury. What the hell's the difference? So this space is pretty heavy paper right now. But with regard here to PayPal, this could very easily be an Adam and Eve in here, but let's get this W to confirm. And if we can get a weekly close back above here, that'll probably paint like a weekly W. And that will tell me that, hey, maybe it's worth getting back in basically where I got out, because I got out up here. If we look at this from a clothesline basis on a weekly chart, there's no W there yet. So you be careful there. Hey, you be careful. Remember, the lower time frame trade right now is short. So. All right. What's this? Brian, can you explain how to pick a good stock? Good luck. Try to identify where insiders of the company own the stock. Usually, if I can get long stock where insiders are long, then odds are I'm in a half decent name. Try and identify stocks with relatively low share counts. Then that way, the actual amount that you're purchasing, it actually represents a sizable chunk of the market. Ideally, I like to try and buy assets at or near book value, or if you like, took all the assets of the company and lined them up and just marked everything to market, every pencil, every desk, every truck, every uniform, every piece of software, whatever. You just line up all the assets and market to market. That's what's called book value of a stock or a company. And ideally, I like to try and buy companies no more than like maybe 2, 3 times book, which makes it almost impossible to consider investing in this world, especially when you see things like this. This is like totally irresponsible as far as I'm concerned. And this can't end well, which is really disappointing. But like Allen, for example, is Allen trading at book value? There is book value. So this stock, if you took all the assets of Tesla and you lined them all up and you said, all right, what is the value of this company? The stock right now at whatever the hell it is, $480 a share, is 20 times what this company is worth. 20 times. And I told you a minute ago what kind of valuations I like to invest companies in. Right? Like exact opposite, this EVGN, that environmental total crony capitalism, at 30 cents a share. And I thought it was funny. I was running the numbers earlier. Where the hell is it? Oh, it's on here somewhere. Book value per share. Price to book. There we are. EVGN on my screen that I did today. I don't know whether I'm showing this because this is the YouTube page. I might have screwed this up. It's trading price to book 0.17. Theoretically, book value per share of this company, wherever the hell it went. The damn symbol. Anyway, I just added on here. Let's try this again. Price to book 0.17 down in here somewhere. Wasting time. I love wasting time. Sorry, everybody. There you are. So 32 cents a share in the current marketplace. Probably the better way to show you is just to go over to the TMX website. Where the heck is that? That's over here, right? Boosh. Guess I don't have that open. I thought I did. Anyway, go like that. And we'll go like that. Let's put this over here. EVGN. So you can see the book value per share. Where is book? Price to earnings. Oh, it's not here. Darn. Oh well. Weird. They're in the waste management business. How exciting, eh? Price to book, 0.17. So they've got a whole pile of assets, and the market is not fairly valuing those assets. Now you can see a market cap 7 million, but their assets must be like 50 million or something. Anyway, probably not the best sales pitch there for price to book ratios. But the point I guess I'm trying to make, and unfortunately on FinViz, we can't see these Canadian companies. But the point being, I hope you see the difference between this is 0.17 price to book, and something like Allen is, I mean, just these insane numbers. Can't justify that fundamental valuation at all. But that's fine. You know, the market's job is to remain illogical far longer than any of us can remain solvent. And of course, he's going to change the world because that's what Alan does, right? So, for anybody who does like invest fundamentally, you can't even look at a company like this. But momentum, cup and handle, robots going to take over the world. I thought this was interesting. Reload zones and then bullish bots. Even a company that's ridiculously overvalued fundamentally can still give you technical setups to trade. But hopefully you see the difference and why I can't touch stuff like this, which is ironic because of the three, actually PayPal's fundamentals are actually pretty attractive. So how ironic. Fundamentally, this thing, what did I do with it? Anyway, usually, there it is, way over there. These fundamentals aren't bad. So, pretty respectable. And ironically enough, what does the street do? You're not talking AI. You're not talking robots. This is boring. You're doing banking for small businesses. We hate banks. So they knock the stock down. And ironically enough, actually, if you look at the financial services stocks right now, actually, they're very strong. So I shorted one of my Chinese banks and I'm getting run over right now. So I don't know whether I'd be overly bearish of a company like this with these kind of fundamentals. Those are actually, they're not bad. I mean, even see here, right? Price to book, 3 times book. That's doable. I remember when I worked for a brokerage house back in the early 90s, they were bought out by one of the Chinese banks when the Chinese banks all piled into the brokerage business again. And they paid 3 times book. That was the takeover bid for the company. It was 3 times book. So, that's fairly valued. So when you pull up 19 times book, and also the same thing with Mr. Funny Air too. Same thing. I mean, this is insane. 82 times book for this Palantir. There's no value there as far as I'm concerned. Maybe they're just going to keep on, piling on new clients and it's just going to be endless growth. I don't know. I suppose so. But I would much rather take my capital and go and buy the little super buzz that I know I'm getting. This super buzz, they did a shares for debt deal at 16 cents. So me buying it at 12 cents, I'm getting in lower than whoever was owed money by the company. They took stock in the new company. Now that's the kind of fundamental story I want to be invested in. And technically they're in the same business. Did I mention these guys claim that, hey, if you buy their product, I think they'll even throw in like a free toaster at the same time too. Boost your sales by 50% within 30 days. Damn. Stone cold. So, I mean, anyway, this is a conversation about value. I'm a value investor. How ironic. I started off my adventure strictly TA, and then over time, I've actually completely changed course. I mean, I still trade things like futures just strictly off of TA. But when it comes to stock investing, I'm much more focused on fundamentals these days. Anyway, so I don't know whether that answers your question, but somebody asked, how do you find stocks? And of course, my education program, I teach everybody 4 different stock. What the hell screen did I have up here? Is it this one? Hey, there you are. 4 different stock screening models from the high growth stories, VCIMs, GARPs, growth at a reasonable price, to value models, WDB, which is my old man's initials, deep value screen that we use for justifying writing put options and carrying the positions on margins so that the market just finances the position. In fact, we should probably do some more of that, but although I guess we are technically with the wheel to a certain degree. And then CanSlim, good old CanSlim, William O'Neill's model is another fantastic model to screen fundamental stories in big growth stocks. So there's 4 different stock valuation models that I teach. So Sanhedge 9569, there's your answer. And of course, completely outlined in my entire education program. Okay. So that's about 1:00 here. I think I've given you a pretty realistic view of what I see happening in the crypto space here in the near term. Yawn. I think that there are some fantastic opportunities within the venture cap space to take advantage of year-end tax loss selling. Very interested. Didn't really talk about it today, but I'm always hunting for value stocks for my registered account. So I went and bought a value name here recently. Kind of boring, legacy investing. I would be very cautious and very slow and steady wins the race kind of thing over the next year. I do think that there'll be some opportunities to see capital appreciation into the new year. I wouldn't even be surprised if names like this perk their way up. I think you're probably best to wait for some sort of W to actually form here before we start getting rah-rah bullish of crypto again. So does that take through the end of the year? It wouldn't surprise me. All right, everybody, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Wish Liam and I luck on the roads. So your best wishes, always greatly, appreciated. Slow and steady wins the race. PMA for the win. Trying to take no wooden nickels. Might be 1 or 2 dropouts on the one-on-one program for the new year. So if anybody who was interested in sneaking their way in, DM me over there on Discord, and I can give you the details of the program. And it doesn't surprise me as we came close into the end. And anybody who's watching this who was on sort of the standby list and is still gung-ho, reach out to me. I could probably help you out there. Look forward to hearing from Julian and Sjord as to their plans for the site going forward. So maybe look out for broadcasts from Julian. I think he did one recently, so I hope you enjoyed that. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. Thank you very much for the awesome karmic wishes for Lily and I. Thank you very much to my show producer, director, chief bottle washer, Chris. Has done a fantastic job through the entirety of all this. If I don't talk to you before the new year, Happy New Year, happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa, and all that. Happy Hanukkah, and PMA for the win, and slow and steady wins a race. All right. Have yourselves a great day. Rest of your day. PMA for the win. Trying to remember what your number one job is. Don't take no wooden nickels in the marketplace. And the only left behind to say to you is already bye for now.